listening to the Ice Prep Podcast. Here's your hosts, Bryan and Pat.
Talk about fun playoffs so far. Welcome, everybody, to the Ice Prep Podcast, where one team has moved on so far. One team has been eliminated. Whoop, didn't mean to press that. That's fine. And, of course, Pat was like, the Avalanche, they're not going to make it out. And, yeah, they haven't lost a single game yet.
Well, I mean, they had a great start last season, and second round.
Hey, that's still better than Florida and Toronto have done for a combined, 60 years now? So
I know, but, getting to the second round over and over and over and getting no further, it's not much better. I don't feel confident that in them going to the third round or further.
Well, here's the issue for the Avs, too, is that because the NHL has decided reseeding is the worst thing imaginable, you're going to end up most likely playing the better team, like the best team that's available. We live in a world where it could be LA Dallas in round 2, which is absolutely hilarious to me.
Yeah.
But of course, Calgary did get the win. They finally managed to get more than 2 goals past Jake Ottinger, who has been unbelievable. It took 3 goals for that win, but they just haven't been able to score on this kid. He is, I don't know what it is. I saw it early on in the playoffs. It was 5 goalies that had been playing phenomenally. All of them were under $1 million on their contract.
Yeah.
It's just one of those weird years where it's like this name that you never knew until just before the playoffs is now your team's best goalie.
Well, Ottinger's also, he's 23? I had it up.
Yeah, he was, I believe he was the same draft as, I don't know why this one keeps coming back up because we've been talking a lot about Cale Makar lately. Mm-hmm. I think he was that draft. Mm-hmm. I can't remember if he was the first round. I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, quickly. Ottinger, he was 2017, first round, 26th overall.
Because there's been a lot of talk lately of the redraft of that one. Obviously, Cale Makar goes first, and then depending on who you talk to, Nico Hischier still slots in 2 or 3, but Ottinger has probably moved up into the top 5, I would think.
Yeah.
You've got Heiskanen up there too, Pettersson, depending on how he's playing. So that's an aside, but that series should be over. It should have been over before it began, but for whatever reason, everybody forgot that playoff Johnny Gaudreau exists, and doesn't matter that Markstrom is playing amazing. Ottinger is the best goalie of the playoffs so far.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt, the stats prove it. The guy is playing unbelievably well, and not to mention Calgary just, I can't tell, I can't watch those games. They're just, it's eating Melba toast. It's the equivalent. It's so dry. It's so dry because,
and it should, all things considered, they should be good games because of Calgary, but it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because you look at Calgary and they only have 6 players that have scored goals. And I know that we're not the only people that have talked about the amount of people that have scored goals in this series. But between the two teams, 18 goals have been scored in 5 games. But if you want to do any sort of comparison, Jake Gensel and Kaprizov have 14 goals, just the 2 of those guys.
And this is not like a handful of years ago where it was Quick against Fleury and it was the best goalie battle 4-game series you've ever seen in your life. It's just these teams, the goalies are doing well, but they're just not scoring when they should be. It's so weird.
Well,
the goalies are doing well, but it feels like there's so many mistakes that just don't happen with especially Calgary.
Well, yeah, because the 6 players that have goals for Calgary, Lindholm has 3, which, once again, Lindholm is just showing that he deserves so much more praise. Then you've got Backlund and Lewis with 2 goals. And then Gaudreau, Mangiapane, and Anderson with 1. So
there's a big name on that list missing because he keeps spending half of the damn game in the penalty box, and Matthew Tkachuk and his brother being in the stands is apparently not very helpful. I don't know what it is.
Well,
though he's wearing the best shirt ever, which is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Did you see?
Yeah, no, that entire, like, Brady Tkachuk at a Calgary Flames game getting drunk trying to get his dad's attention was probably the most entertaining thing I've seen all week. It was
And
absolutely
you know what the
wonderful.
funny thing is that if Calgary gets knocked out and St. Louis moves on, we'll see Brady then go to every Blues game.
Yeah.
Because he'll follow around his buddy Robert Thomas like he did a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. But the one thing I do want to point out, though, with those goals, I know that you mentioned that, playoff Goudreau. I don't know what you're talking about because he had to get a penalty shot to get a goal.
Yeah.
So,
he's been consistently, great during the regular season. He just doesn't score or do anything in the playoffs. It's been like that for a few years, and yeah, he finally gets one on the penalty shot. The fact that, it's...
I mean, he has 4 assists, so he has 5 points in total, which isn't anything to, scoff at. 5 points in 5 games. He's a point per game, but...
If there's only 18 goals combined in the series, that makes him the best offensive threat, I guess.
I don't know. It's interesting. That series is interesting, but also... I do kind of really want to say I did sort of call that a little. I was saying that Nashville is going to pose a threat against Calgary. Again, that was before Soros went out. But I said I have a feeling Calgary's going to get goalied. I was right, but the wrong team.
And if... Yeah, it sucked for Nashville that they didn't get Saros, and obviously that was great for... the Avalanche. I don't think that may have just made it 5 games instead of 4. I don't think Nashville, the pieces were there. They were just so outclassed night in, night out that it didn't matter what goalie that they had.
Yeah.
And Calgary somehow they're up 3-2 in this series. I do wonder if Calgary makes it out of this series, if we're going to see them putting up their next round matchup against either Edmonton or LA, and right now it looks like LA. Just the way that Quick is on and off, that series could look like the New York Pittsburgh one, where it's just goals, goals, goals. No lead is safe, and suddenly there's going to be just a spattering of goals.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough because you also have Markstrom, who is a Vezina candidate. He's not going to win it, but he's still a Vezina candidate. Or is he?
Yeah, he was one of the Vezina candidates, and of the 3, he is definitely the only one playing up to that caliber of goalie in the playoffs.
Yeah,
we'll get to New York and how. Oh my goodness, I was so right on that take way back when. That you hard disagreed with until you thought about.
Yeah, I think, you know what, I think we can switch over. We've gone through Dallas and Calgary a decent amount, and I have a feeling it'll be an interesting series. So yeah, let's shift over to the Pittsburgh-New York series, because that one, there's a lot to talk about in that series.
And Jacob Trouba last night, call it unintentional, call it intentional. He's saying it's unintentional. The fact that he took out 2 players with elbows in one game, one of them being the best player in the playoffs, and then suddenly New York mounts a comeback with 0 repercussion. Why, are we going to see headhunting happening in this series now? Because Crosby goes out, Pittsburgh can't hold that lead. New York comes back to win it. They're up 3-2 in the series. The Crosby is not playing like he's 34. He's playing like he's back in his mid-20s right now. And if they don't have him, I don't think that his presence on the ice is otherworldly. And Igor Shesterkin is crap this playoffs. He is awful.
Okay, so I have a couple things that I want. You jumped around a bunch there, and I wanted,
yes.
I was trying to insert myself a little bit, phrasing. But, so I've been vocal about how I'm not Crosby's biggest fan, just because when he was playing against the London Knights, he was just kind of a whiny little
he was a teenager.
Yeah, he was a teenager, and more or less, I just didn't like the way that he responded to the loss. Obviously, I don't like sore losers. I got pretty mad about Minnesota last episode. So, with all that being said and done, he is so important to the league. He's a fantastic player, and that's what drives me nuts, is because he is so good. He's a fantastic player, and he's suddenly hit this new gear again, going like reversing time, and we're finally getting to see this, playoff Crosby at his prime again, and he's taken out again. Like, come on.
It's unreal. Like, he was basically like somebody went. The Rangers tried to like tackle him down multiple times on the same play. He still gets a goal out of it. Like, there's this other level that he has. Like, yeah, McDavid there's no argument that he is probably the best player on the planet. Mm-hmm. But there was a poll that came out just before the playoffs from the players. If there's one player with the game on the line, who do you want? McDavid was number 1. Crosby was number 2. It still has to be Crosby.
Yeah. I mean, I'm starting to, and obviously there's a bit of bias with myself, but like my gut's starting to shift a little bit to Cale, because my goodness, Cale Makar can just
we'll get there.
He can do things most humans can't, but no, like Sidney Crosby is so important, not only for Pittsburgh, but also for the NHL. It's so important for viewership, and the fact that Jacob Trouba can just say, nah, and take him out, like, that sucks. But
didn't he also hit Gensel earlier on in the game too, and had him? Like, you've got that. Raquel potentially is back for the next game. Like, the Rangers are just headhunting, and that's what it feels like.
Well, yeah. So they've realized that they don't know how to play defense. You've got Adam Fox.
They never could.
Yeah, no, and like it's being exposed now. So Adam Fox, who won the, I don't know, I've already forgotten. I can never
Norris.
remember. Norris, thank you. I just keep going to Vezina. I don't know. But anyway, so he wins the Norris last year and then decided to just give up this year. When it comes to defensive play is what it feels like. And then the rest of the defenders aren't there. You have no forwards doing active defense at all. Like, in comparison, if you were to put New York versus Toronto, Toronto is by far the better defensive team, but none of those defensemen would ever be considered for Norris because reasons. I don't know. And I'm not, again, like, I'm not a Toronto fan, but like, they're the better defensive team, period. Plain and simple. And I heard a stat because I was grocery shopping listening to the game, and I heard a stat from the Penguins radio feed. And they said, and I can't remember the exact number, but I know it was over 15. But game 4 of the Pittsburgh versus New York Rangers game, there were 15 shots on net from the slot. 15 or more. I think it was either 15 to 18.
And that's like the one spot where if they say high danger shots, that's pretty much where it's coming from.
It's
the most likely spot to score.
Yeah, that's where you want to shoot from. That is what the chef's kids. That's what you want. 100% of those 15 shots from that one game were shot by the Penguins, 0 from the New York Rangers. That no wonder Shesterkin's getting lit up. And he's still doing okay. He's got a 905. Bobrovsky's got a 902. Domingue has a 900.
Take out that overtime where he had, 70 saves?
Yeah.
He's probably like an 870 this series, honestly.
But
there was 3 overtimes of not... Oh, no. Here's the thing. This is what I was saying way back when with the Rangers, and it's only more evident now because they're one of 15 teams remaining, so they are heavily in the spotlight. They do not know how to play defense.
No.
They get bailed out by their goalies so hard. They are the Edmonton Oilers with a better goaltender, and it is so much more evident now that we're seeing it in the playoffs, and they're seeing a team expose that, except for New York decided the only defense is to literally start injuring players.
Mm-hmm. They're going to the Minnesota Wild route.
Like, honestly, here's this, to me, the scary thing is that if New York wins this series, they're up 3-2 right now. I have the feeling that they will really change their style in the next series, and I have the feeling we're going to see like the Vezina caliber Igor putting up ridiculous numbers, and if the Rangers score 3 goals in a game, that should be enough to win. I think this is one of those, like, if they can get past this series, New York might be the scariest team in the East.
I don't think so. They have a lot of this team. It doesn't have a lot of playoff experience. New York hasn't really been a playoff caliber team, really. Whoever they're going to be going against has playoff experience, right?
And actually, looking at my brain, I was talking baseball and football earlier today with somebody, so my brain was going into, they reseed. No, they don't. Good luck if it's New York, Carolina.
They'll
the
get
way
done.
that, mind you, at the same time, everybody thought that was going to be a sweep. We had said, though, if Boston, if they don't win Game 3, those fans are going to burn that building down, and no team in that series has been able to win away from home. So who knows what's going to happen in that one. But New York, Pittsburgh, that's Game 6 tomorrow night in Pittsburgh.
On Thursday.
Still no word on Crosby at this point.
Yeah.
Slight chance that Raquel is back. Apparently Tristan Jarry's been doing actual reps. So, and that's a scary thing. Like, Louis Domingue has been serviceable.
Mm-hmm.
Do you take out the guy that's gotten you to this point, or do you bring in Tristan Jarry? That's a tough thing. So it'll be interesting to see in that one. Honestly, if Crosby is back and they don't headhunt him again, I don't think New York can win that series.
No, I honestly, the way that I've been seeing Pittsburgh play, I'm like, oh, okay, New York doesn't deserve this win. They don't.
There's a reason why they've kept Crosby, Malkin, and Letang together for the longest trio in NHL history.
Yeah, because the three of them are fantastic, but we're also forgetting about somebody else that is an incredible playoff performer for the Pittsburgh Penguins. That this is a name that I forget about all the time. Every single time somebody mentions it, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy. Is he good? And that guy is Jake Gensel, and he is good. Wow.
Well, and I remember when it might have been after his first season, because everybody was like, he is just a product of Sidney Crosby. He does this year in, year out. And then Crosby went away, and his numbers went up.
Yeah.
Jake, he improves Crosby's level of play, but he doesn't need Crosby to be at that level. And
he has the most goals in the playoffs right now. He's tied for first with the most goals in the playoffs with 7 goals. So that's
ridiculous.
He is scoring more than 1 goal a game. Him and Kirill Kaprizov are the only 2 players that have, I think, more than 5 goals. I think was the bar that I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
So he's doing incredible things, and he's a point per game player in the playoffs, 100% right on the line. In regular season, he was 1.1 points per game, and so far this playoffs, he's at 1.6 points per game. This kid is doing incredible things. I say kid, he's 27 years old, but
everybody forgets about him though, because Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh is
a team
got
of
Crosby
people that
and
you've
Malkin.
never heard of half the time.
Yeah, except they're not always just reliant on Crosby getting them all these points. He is one of those ones that has shown he can do it without.
Yeah.
So that's I hope for Pittsburgh's sake. It's weird for me to say I would rather see Pittsburgh win over New York, but I haven't liked the way New York has played.
No.
And as much as I know you dislike Crosby, seeing him in dominant form like this
100%.
is fun to watch.
Yeah,
it's so much more fun than watching Panarin give up on a puck like Nylander.
And yeah, I never thought I would say it, but I would rather see him lift the cup. Plain and simple. I would love to see that story. Crosby, years later, when everyone counted him out saying, he's past his prime, he's done, and he's lifting the cup. That would be friggin' amazing. That's a story I would love to see. I don't think it will happen this year, but
the East is too strong, let alone a team coming out of the West. But like Pittsburgh, they're going to – it's the same thing with Washington. As long as Crosby and Ovechkin are in the league, those teams are going to be able to keep going for it.
Yep, they'll still have a chance. They might be first-round exits, but they still made it in. And that's more than what 16 other teams can say.
Yep. Since we're doing unexpectedly games that happened last night, let's go to Florida-Washington. You and I last night were messaging back and forth, and we were both in agreement that if Tom Wilson is not injured, he was out game one. He played, I think it was like 90 seconds of this series. Washington probably would have won this series 4-1.
Yeah, Washington, in my opinion, has been the better team. They've just felt a bit more solid, even though like some of the games you can kind of see the wheels rattling and about to fall off. They've been able to keep those wheels on at least. So they might get down, but they're never out. And yeah, I'm really hopeful they actually take out Florida. I would love to see Florida get taken out. That would be delicious.
Yeah, and finally, in the last game for Florida, they were able to get that chaos that we were talking about that you wouldn't be able to get in the playoffs. They found a way to finally. If Tom Wilson is back for Game 6, we go to a Game 7. I don't know if the Caps can close it out then, but that's a tough building to win in for Florida on the road. So I think that's the two other series that we've talked about so far, and Florida-Washington, I think all of them are going to Game 7, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree.
It just feels like one of those years where
Calgary, Dallas, New York, Pittsburgh, Florida, Washington. Yeah, I could see all of those going to Game 7.
All of them too. The team that is down has home for Game 6, so it's just that much more of the balance of potentially.
Yeah.
There's not too much to say in that series. Florida's kind of started to find it. Washington is, as you said, they're outplaying them.
Yeah.
Which wasn't supposed to be that way. It's just sometimes that's just the way it goes. Like Florida, it's not like they're playing bad. They're just not the better team right now.
Yeah, and I think that does kind of speak volumes to their team. On paper and throughout the regular season, they looked really good, but playoffs are different. People are tired. Like, you've just played 82 games, probably less, but you've just played 82 games. You get in, and it's just like, cool. You have to play like what feels like probably 3 or 4 games worth of energy in one game.
Well, and this is what we were talking about with Florida too, in that if you looked at regulation wins for them, they were one of the lowest teams that made it into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it showed until they finally found a way to just make things tilt in their favor a little bit. I honestly thought Washington had that last game, and Florida ended up getting the win out. So I think Florida, of the three that we talked about, I hope Pittsburgh takes it, but I have the feeling it'll be Calgary, Florida, and New York as the teams moving on. So each team that's up 3-2 right now.
Okay, so that kind of leads me into a nice bolded question that I have on our prep sheet here. And it was something that I read early this morning that later was adopted by Sportsnet. And they did a graphic of some kind, as they do. And what it is the team that wins Game 5 to take the 3-2 series lead wins the series 79.1% of the time. So, not on their math, but another person's math, the person that originally discovered this stat, I believe. So out of the 420 previous occasions, 332 times the Game 5 winner wins the series, and 88 times they lost it. So, right now we have 7 series. 7 series, all but one.
I love it.
All but one series, just Colorado. So all but one series are sitting at a 3-2 series matchup. Stats kind of point that there might be one that ends up.
Yeah.
So which team is going to be number 89? Which one is going to lose the series after winning Game 5? So is it going to be St. Louis? Is it going to be Calgary? Is it going to be LA, Florida, Toronto, Carolina, or New York?
Oh, I think there's going to be 2 out of this list, and I have the feeling that, well, we'll get to this. I won't actually say this because I see you have it later on in the sheet. I think if Crosby doesn't have a concussion, he will play through anything. I think Pittsburgh comes back because they're going to be at home. He's going to be pissed off, and I have the feeling that it's going to be one of those games where Malkin just does what he does. He takes over, and I think New York's not going to be able to handle that pressure. The only other one that I see is Dallas.
Okay.
Because boring hockey, amazing goaltender, and they're going to snuff out the Flames, which will make my neighbor really upset because he's a big Flames fan.
I agree with you. I think Dallas is going to be probably the biggest upset out of all of it. The other one, and I don't know why, but my gut just keeps saying that Boston's going to take it. I don't think they're the better team. I really don't think they are.
I looked at that one, and it's, that what an unreal series. If you like watching hockey from the 80s and 90s, but played at the speed that we have now, boy, do we have a series for you.
Yeah.
I guess we can go there because we've talked about the 3 games that happened last night. Obviously, we'll dive into your Avs afterwards because they just decided to get the broom out and break some records.
Why not?
Carolina up 3-2 on Boston. No team can win away from home. I don't think Boston loses tonight.
No.
And then in a best of 1, we have seen on that elimination style, unless it's the Stanley Cup final, Boston has the edge.
Boston plays with not just a chip on their shoulder. Like they've got an entire field of potatoes on their shoulder.
Boo!
Right? I thought about putting
bad.
Mark Messier just betting that we can't eat just one on their shoulder. But yeah, no, they're so talented, and people just don't want to think that Marchand is as good as he is, and he really is such a good player. People don't want to think that line is the top line. You hear about every other top line in the league all the time. Goudreau, Austin, and Mitch, Colorado.
And they've been together for how many years? And they consistently sit as one of the best lines in hockey.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. And the one thing we talked about before the playoffs was they are not the heavy team of old.
No.
But they can still throw their weight around, and boy, have we seen that.
They're not the heavy team of old, but my goodness, are they the most annoying team in the world? 'Cause those penalties that they draw, those are that is just it's.
I mean, if it wasn't for Toronto and Tampa basically going on the power play every 2 seconds, that series would have the most penalty minutes of all of them easily. And for whatever, like, all the fights, and somehow Toronto-Tampa still has more. Figure that one out. I know I said Pittsburgh and Dallas. I do agree that I think Boston has the chance to. It's just something about the Canes. Because they still have the pocket Vezina runner-up, just like chilling. Will they get the chance to play him? Would he start Game 7 if it goes to a Game 7? Or at this point, are the Canes just like, well, ride the hand and then hope to bring him in fresh for round 2? I don't know. Obviously, you think Boston's got the next 2, so
I just think it's gonna be a tight series. I can't imagine Game 7 because I agree. I think obviously I agree if I think Boston's gonna squeak it out, but I think, yes, if it goes to a Game 7, that is going to be a very close game. It is going to be incredibly, incredibly tight.
And that will not be a soft game either. That is going to be each team trying to brutalize the other, being like, if you're moving on, we're taking a piece of you with us.
Yep. Now, I wanted to kind of quickly touch on something with the Toronto-Tampa game. We don't have to go.
We can go there.
We don't have to go too deep into Toronto-Tampa. I mean, I think everybody knows it's all penalty driven right now is what it's. It's penalty driven for the
it's
first
penalties in the first
half.
Yeah, and then it just goes.
Yeah,
which is
like you could.
That's even worse than not calling anything.
Yeah, you could pull someone's eye out and they'd be like, but I didn't really see it.
Oh wait, the crowd yelled though, so I did see it. I think.
Yeah. Right. What I think is going to happen. So I think actually Toronto is going to close it out tonight. I think they are.
You and I are in agreement on that.
And I think it's going to go to overtime. And I think the game-winning goal is going to be scored by Jason Spezza.
Oh, does he even draw in tonight?
If he's on the ice tonight, I think he is going to get the goal that puts them into the next round. Breaks
apparently
that
after
curse.
he had a big speech in the first intermission for Game 5, and that was what the big fire was. So he probably will draw in. The only thing that I will argue against that is historically, if you look at overtime, your fourth line gets like maybe a minute and a half of ice time per. I mean, he could do it at that.
What if they get a penalty? Spezza's on the ice for PP2, and they're not going to be able to run PP1 the whole time.
Yeah, Spezza is drawing in tonight, and looks like Hull is staying in as well. So
well, he had a good game.
Going with the exact same. And hey, Mrazek was actually at the morning skate, so there's that.
Oh, good for him. I know that obviously Leafs fans aren't too thrilled, but like you got to keep in mind, Mrazek is a very good goaltender. He's just plagued with injuries, unfortunately. His groin muscle is just. It's
just the way it goes.
I mean, but look at Quick. Quick has found that new gear, and he's also been in that situation his entire career. I think he pulled his groin at a very young age, like very early on in his career, and he's been battling it since. So clearly, he's been able to find a way to adjust and improve. So because clearly he's improved. Like, how do you improve at this age? Holy crap!
Some goalies are weird like that. Just since you called the game winner. Just because I think it'll be Nylander.
Nah, it's not gonna be. If it's either gonna be Matthews or Spezza. I can't see it being any other. It's like I remember the gold medal game when Crosby scored the goal when I was at the peak of my bitterness towards Crosby, and I remember standing there in the corner, not even sitting, just angrily watching the game happen. And I remember when it went to overtime, I was like, Crosby's going to score this damn goal, and I'm never going to be able to live this down. And then he did.
Can I just say that I remember that entire game so well, and a big part of it was, do you remember who scored the game-tying goal for the USA?
I don't, because I was working at EB at that time, and I was getting like play-by-play updates texted to me.
So this is when I'm in college. We had a house with one of my buddies, the one who actually voices our intro and Game of the Week thing, lived with him and another buddy. He had a handful of people over to watch. Everybody knows I'm a New Jersey Devils fan. Zach Parise, one of the Devils stars, is the one who tied it late.
Oh.
So it was that like, oh, okay, I will feel so like it was like, hey, Parise, oh no.
And they're just like booing you and throwing cans of beer at
Basically,
you.
yeah.
Oh, this is your fault.
I will say, if we were to dig through years past, I don't think we have ever, in at least the last half decade, thought that the Leafs were going to win a series.
Yeah, and I think
we are in agreement on them going deep and closing it off tonight. Like, I don't know what it is. They just have that, and it's to me, they're going to have that same vibe as the Caps when the Caps finally beat the Penguins. if they can get over that first round demon, I think it's just a slingshot to the finals.
If they go to Game 7, they will not go further.
Yeah, that I think we're both in. Like, I think a lot of people agree on that.
Yeah.
So and here's the thing. I had this one pulled up because it is crazy. So obviously the Tampa Bay Lightning are now 16-0 following a loss ever since they were swept by Columbus. Since 2018, the Leafs are 0-6 in games where they could move on to round 2. So either a streak continues or 2 streaks get shattered, and it literally could be the start of history.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really I'm actually very excited for this game because I can't wait for Twitter to blow up either way. Because that's
it's going to be a cesspool either way. Yes. We'll see how long we stay on Twitter. That's a whole other beast of a thing.
Oh,
yes.
100%. Yeah, and then I guess we can kind of shift over a little bit.
We'll go to the West.
Yeah, we'll go to the West. And I kind of want to bring up the fact that you didn't say that Edmonton has the chance of coming back from losing Game 5.
They can't headbutt their way into a win this game.
Yeah. Okay. So
Darnell Nurse suspended 1 game for the dumbest potential move. I can't believe it was only 1 game, by the way. That is an intent to injure. That is just as bad, if not worse, than the Achilles cross-check that we went into.
Yeah.
There's a difference between an Achilles and your chin.
Yeah, that was targeted and so dangerous for both players, too.
Like, yeah. Edmonton is my second team because of that. I was like, you know what, LA, move on. I hate seeing that from Edmonton. The fact that Smith is still in net and they haven't gone to Koskinen, to me, is unreal. He's like, Quick is going to win the battle between them again. I think that series ends tonight.
Yep.
I don't like Edmonton. Yeah, they can score at will sometimes, but unless McDavid and Draisaitl both put up 35 minutes tonight and like 4 goals each, I think LA takes this one in Game 6 tonight, which is unfortunate because there is nothing I want more than Battle of Alberta in round 2.
Yeah, and the only way
that would probably be the best hockey series we ever see in our life.
See, and I disagree because the only way I think that Edmonton makes it through is if they run McDavid and Draisaitl, like you said, 30 minutes this game, and then then they immediately go up against potentially Calgary in Battle of. They're going to be gassed midway through that series. They're just going to be exhausted. They've already been, shouldering an entire franchise for multiple years, and then it's just like, hey guys, can you shoulder more? Okay, yeah, that should be fine. We don't have a goaltender and our defense isn't that great, but sure, we'll do everything we humanly can.
Or who knows, maybe I'm completely wrong and not having Nurse there will make other players step up and they'll play better. Sometimes that happens.
Before, yeah.
We've seen that, a lot of times in the past. If who do you have tonight? Game 6 close, or are we going to Game 7?
Oh, no, LA's winning tonight. You can't come back from that taunt. That game-winning goal.
Bravo.
That was Dano, right? Yeah.
No, that was, why can't I think of his name? It's not Arvidsson, because he was traded there. It's the other weird name. It wasn't Dano.
It wasn't?
LA game winner. Game 5.
Yeah.
This is great audio.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Do you want to listen to us look at our phones? That's literally. Kempe. It was Kempe, right? So for those that didn't see it, Kempe wins, scores the goal that wins it in overtime, and
in Edmonton.
And like that barn was pretty loud, and he skated right up to the glass, and he did pretty much what Matthews did, where he called for the crowd to cheer for him, but instead he was like, "What's that? Everything's so quiet."
It's kind of like so the heel Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
it's the heel Hulk Hogan move. It's Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Oh, it was so good. That is devastating. That is That is, as the meme says, emotional damage is what happened.
And here's the best part. If LA does close it out tonight, that is the last visual in Edmonton that the Oilers have.
That's
like happen. Calgary fans would put that up on a billboard in Edmonton.
Oh yeah.
Because it's beautiful. Like that to me is some of my favorite. I love seeing heels in hockey. We don't get it enough. And that is like perfect. That makes me fall in love with a player.
Well, and not to mention, like, he's actually a very good player, and like he's not a dirty player either. So it wasn't even like a dirty play. It was just like, it was this perfect amount of salt in the wound of just like, we outplayed you. And what's that? Oh, you're gonna be quiet? Oh, neat.
And that's, here's the thing. If, say, just jumping back, say it is a late goal for the Leafs to win the game or an overtime against Tampa, there's one player on the Leafs that would do something similar, and that is Matthews.
I don't know if he would. I think he would. If they were kind of targeting him that game, I feel like he would do it towards the players, not the fans.
I don't know. Also, just quickly, can I say it was nice to see one of the biggest Leafs finally throw his body around last game.
Yeah.
In Matthews, he we've one
Marner
of the first episodes we ever did of this show was us being like, why doesn't Matthews hit more?
Yeah.
It's like the Futurama. Why doesn't he just simply eat the smaller? He's a massive human being, and it's yeah. So we both have weird. We have picked the same 3 winners. This doesn't happen.
No.
Often ever. So we both have LA taking it. Though it's so tough because the Oilers have won 2 times in a row in this series already, but I don't trust Mike Smith.
And they lost.
I wouldn't trust him to carry my groceries in my door.
And as
at
much
this point,
as Darnell Nurse is not the world's best defenseman, I don't think he's the best defenseman on that team.
It's how many minutes he plays.
He plays so many minutes, and he's still a crucial part. And like, you can't just call up an AHL defenseman and be like, "Hey, can you play at Darnell Nurse's level?" No. Okay, well, can Evan Bouchard step up to that? Probably not. Maybe.
Well, Bouchard can do the minutes. It just makes me wonder if, because Barry's been rocking third line, if they give him a bit more responsibility. And who knows? I called him as being maybe the key piece for the Oilers to win. Maybe we see him step up, and that little thing that I threw out there comes true. I doubt it. LA probably tonight.
With Trevor Moore scoring the game winner.
That one probably hurts the Leafs, but
yeah.
You know what? Dubas doing that for a few of the players now has brought good karma back their way in some players, so I mean, it's kind of worked out. And then the last series, the one that I said was the series to watch, it's the series to watch in the West. The best series to watch is Carolina-Boston if you love just like old-time hockey, but mixed with new skill. We know how much you hate Minnesota, but you also hate St. Louis.
Yep.
I know you don't want to see either team move on if that is somehow possible because your team plays the winner of this.
I legit want both teams to lose. I want somehow Nashville's just like, you know what? Screw it. Come back for the second round. This is a tough one.
Because no matter what, the winner of this, you're playing in the second round, potentially one of the hottest teams coming out of the first round in the way that these teams have played. Binnington is found his game again. As we were talking about before we started recording, Binnington, for whatever reason, he kind of has the Avs number. And he has ever since he came into the league.
Yeah, but at the same time,
playoff Makar is something we have not seen in our lifetimes. And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
You and I have not seen a player like Makar on defense in our lifetime ever.
No. And with Binnington, yes, he's sitting right now. He's got a .935 save percentage. Good for him. So Darcy Kemper's sitting at a .934. So kind of close.
Difference is, though, well, technically Kemper has played more hockey, which is weird because Bennington has only played 2 games now. But
Yep.
that series is, I haven't had the chance to watch one just because usually it's, okay, well, I'll watch the Leafs and then I want to catch some of the Edmonton LA series. So the other one gets kind of lost in the ether and I watch the highlights the next day. Colorado will have their hands full. I think of those 2 teams, it won't matter. But there's no good opponent for the Avs because the Blues, we said, they can roll 3-4 lines, and those 3-4 lines are going to score. Tarasenko's back. Minnesota finally has a bona fide star that is not like, hey, you said at the beginning of the year you thought that he was a one-off, it was a dumb contract. It's looking like that is now a steal.
Oh yeah, no, I'm eating those words.
What?
It's also, it's a bias against it. Like I
yeah.
don't want, like, that to me, that's wasted talent. It feels
Well,
like he
the
should
reason
be
why
anywhere
he's
else.
making as much as he is, and you have to remember, Minnesota has this year, and that's about it to go for a cup run.
Yep, this is their
Because
last
the
chance.
buyouts are going to screw them. And something we haven't talked about at all is Marc-Andre Fleury has started 5 of the games. Cam Talbot is finally getting in tonight. He hasn't played since April 26th, so he's going to be coming in a little cold.
Yeah.
He was one of the best goalies in the final stretch of the regular season. So will that be the thing that gets this to a Game 7? Does St. Louis close it out tonight in St. Louis?
I even wrote this down because we're tracking it. I'm the one that wrote it down, and I'm
tracking it.
and I'm still unprepared for this question. I think the Blues do close it out, and if they don't, the Wild go through. They will win Game 7. If the Blues do get through, they will go to the semifinals. They will beat Colorado. I'm pretty positive in this. If the Wild makes it through, they will lose to Colorado.
Okay.
I don't think the Wild match up well with Colorado as much as they are a dirty team and they have started to play a little bit better. I don't think that they're at the same level.
Wasn't it the Blues that Makar walked a few times this year, though?
Yeah, but Makar can only do so much. And the Blues in the playoffs are much, much heavier.
They look better than when they went on their Stanley Cup run, by the way.
Yeah, so they're playing better than they have. Their goalie has a little bit of heat. We'll see if it continues tonight. And they're just a solid team, both like not only with the mesh of the team, but just physically. They are a consistently every line. The only player that I'm like, ooh, you're gonna get shattered is Kyrou, and even still, he's.
But you have to catch him to do that.
Yeah, like he's
and nobody
slippery.
catches him.
Whereas you look at the Avalanche team, and as much as they are, they're a bigger team, they can throw their body around, everything like that. I don't think that they can keep up with St. Louis, which is weird to say because Colorado is one of the fastest teams on the ice. But I just don't think they
See,
have
I would like to point something out for those listening. This is what Pat does to not set himself up for disappointment.
Yeah.
Is that, no, the Avs are going to lose. If the Avs play the Wild, they will win. If the Avs play the Blues, they will win. And the big part of that is Kemper will be back 100%. This might be one of the only times where we see a team getting a long layoff. Because normally we've seen in the past a team that finishes early, they usually tend to get swept after or knocked out. It takes them a game or two to get going. This is probably one of those weird circumstances where it is the best case scenario for Colorado. Not necessarily because of injuries, because apparently Kemper would have been good for Game 5, but it's giving this team a chance to have a mental break from one of the most closed-in seasons that the NHL has ever had.
Well, and I read something today that honestly kind of crushed me on the inside, but also was just like, hey, maybe there is a chance they'll actually do well. Today's practice was the first practice of the entire year where there was no players wearing a no-contact jersey. Meaning every player on the ice that was practicing was healthy enough to play that night. That has not happened all season long.
And that's one of those, it's in the playoffs too. They are very cautious about being like, this guy, we're not sure. Stay away from him.
Yeah.
Like, they're made of glass. Don't touch them. We need to be sure. So you said Pat's got the Blues closing it tonight.
Yep.
I think the Wild, with Talbot backstopping them, they find a way. I think Husso comes back in for Game 7. The Blues get the win like I called. I believe I had the Blues in 5 or 6 on this one. So who knows? Either I'm right or I'm right. So I guess I can't lose on this one.
Well, the other thing is the Wild is doing some line shuffling too. They've swapped out a few players. I think Bugstad was on the chopping block as well, which I thought was interesting because I thought he was kind of a critical piece for that team. But yeah, so they've made some roster changes as well. So you never know. It's tough, especially the one thing I want to point out is I think they swapped out a defenseman, if my memory serves me right. And if they did, I don't know if that's a great idea because I think that was the issue that ran in with Justin Hall. It's one thing to remember how to score goals. You get on the ice, it's like riding a bike. As soon as you get on the ice and moving around, it feels good. You can get that groove back pretty quickly if you've been out with an injury or were scratched or something. Defense is different. It's a mentality versus an action. And you need a bit of a refresher. You need some time to get back into that groove. It just depends on each player how quickly it takes. So really solid and talented players coming off the bench, coming off an injury, most likely can slot back in pretty quickly and feel more comfortable. Ones that are a little bit more green, maybe not. So that could also be a major factor, that swapping out a defenseman, now you've got somebody that's not in defensive mode.
It's tough to say because, it took Hall his first game. He was looked good in the last game, so will it work out? I just think Talbot's going to bail them out in Game 6. Something in me says that's what's going to happen because he looks so good at the end of the season.
Yeah. But
so I guess because we talked about the Magic 3-2 series lead.
Yeah.
So if I take a look, you said the Bruins are probably going to.
I would
end up winning that series.
52% chance that Bruins win it. That's where my gut says.
So if we look at everything right now of the games tonight, you think that the Bruins are the only one where we will get a Game 7?
Yes.
All right. It's tough to argue that. And it still blows me away of how often and long we have ragged on the Leafs. And it's so tough to find fault. There's a few coworkers here that will come talk and ask me things about hockey because they know that I'm all in on it. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I've said to a lot of people that are doubting the Leafs is look at how they lost their games compared to how Tampa lost. When Tampa loses, except for that last game, they were getting blown out.
Yeah.
They were getting completely outclassed. In the 2 games that the Leafs have lost, they had a bad 10-minute stretch where they could not stay out of the penalty box. They still managed to claw their way back into the game and make it tight on Tampa. Mm-hmm. Tampa hasn't done that in a loss.
No, and
except for last one where the Leafs were losing, clawed back in, and it was enough to. They have that fight that we haven't seen from this team. It's that fight that Tampa has had when they were playing the Islanders, and that one was forced to go to Game 7 when they've been down. So it's weird to say the Leafs are going to move on, but it's so tough to find fault in them right now.
Well, the other thing, too, that I find interesting, and I might be wrong, I haven't checked this. This is just going from what I've been hearing, kind of piecing it together. But going into that night, so when the Leafs beat Tampa last, and they came back to win it, I believe, and again, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that Toronto was the first team this playoff to win the game after giving up the first goal.
In that series.
I thought it was across the board.
No, there's been others where there was goal swaps.
Okay.
I do believe in that series, whoever had scored the first goal had won.
Okay, but
That
even
was that
still,
because I believe, you could be right, but I think there's a few others where another team scored first type deal. It's been one of those like momentum is absolutely carrying these games.
but that also shows that's different. Toronto's not known for bucking the trends. They are known to just kind of fall into the norm. What's that? Every single time the one team scores, they're the winner at the end of it. All right, let's just keep that going. That's pretty much the way that it felt like for years. Like whatever trend it was, that's what the Leafs would do. That's how the series would end. That's how it would happen. Up 3-1, whether it's in a series or in a game. 3-1 is a dangerous number. They're going to go up 3-1 tonight. Oh my goodness. I'm just realizing this now. They're going to go up 3-1, and then Tampa's going to score 2 goals, and then Jason Spezza is going to end it. That's, it's got to be that poetry. It's got to be that.
Just for my point, on Monday, Rangers scored first in their 7-2 loss to the Penguins.
Okay,
So, no, I know in the Leafs Tampa series, whoever has scored first until the last game had won. Tampa was also, I believe, it was 34 or 35, 1-3 when leading after 2. The Leafs actually had a solid comeback record when down after 2. So, and that's like there's a different gear. Leafs have always had this problem. They cannot start on time.
Yep.
This year, they cannot start on time and they cannot stay out of the penalty box. So if they can, and it doesn't help that the refs are literally just like, oh, that person fell. Yeah. Like everything in the first period of that series.
Yeah, there was a lot of bad calls. Thankfully, it was kind of equally bad. Like, I wouldn't say there was a bias one way or the other, personally. No. I think that most of those calls were soft to start, and I feel like that they got a call like mid-game. They're like, guys, this is terrible. You need to stop.
Well, it was funny. The second that we got to the third period, I was watching with my wife. I was like, we're not going to see anything get called because the refs do not want to be the one held accountable, even though they don't get held accountable for anything.
It's going to be a bad call, too. That's what it's, because all year long, the Leafs have lost because of bad calls has been the narrative. In overtime, it's going to be a penalty.
At least in overtime.
Jason Spezza on PP2.
At least in overtime, like, the only time you see a call is when it's like, if I don't call that, the fans might literally, like, jump the glass. Like, you look at that Pittsburgh Rangers 3 overtime. Or 3 OTs, like there was penalties that would be called in like the first or second. They're never getting called in overtime. It's got to be bad, like like your face is gashed, and they'll be like, "But you're not bleeding, right?"
Yeah, like it doesn't look like there's flowing blood.
So that's the 7 series still ongoing. Did want to quickly touch because since we last talked, literally the Avs swept Nashville. One thing we were talking about before we got into the show was Nazem Kadri, and that he's been kind of targeted, and you've seen the Avalanche players come to his defense instead.
Yeah, so they've actually spoken about this in some press conferences after the game. I believe it was Josh Manson. Again, going from memory, I didn't actually pull up anything on this because, I'm lazy. But I believe it was Josh Manson said that he noticed that there were players from Nashville that were trying to, like, goad him into a fight of some kind. So, like, really just trying to get under his skin. I mean, that's playoff
And
hockey.
he's been
That's pretty
skating
normal.
away, too.
Yeah, he, I think it took him, like, 3 games to throw his first hit.
Because he was so worried.
Like, yeah, and like it sucks. It like that completely changes a player's game. Like because he's so worried about getting fined for an infraction, and yes, the infractions he did were finable and suspendable. I am not excusing what he did, and neither is he. If you read that Players Tribune piece that he did, he says that he did the wrong thing. He did it poorly. He messed up, and he's aware of it, which is why he's changed his gameplay up so drastically.
So I brought this up for a very particular reason, and I was hoping that you would bring that up. part of me thinks that Kadri had that done and had it released when he did for a reason, and it was to get himself targeted so that other players would try and come after him and get the team to defend him. Because if other players are going after Kadri and he skates away, there's only so many times that the refs can go without calling that. I think that is Kadri literally gaming the system in the smartest way possible. 3 times he's been suspended in the playoffs. He talks about it. What does Nashville do for literally 4 games? Go after him, try and goad him, and he skates away. And I think at one point he literally turns around in one of the games and face washes and ends up in the box. It's like, really, after all the stuff that's happening to him? I think that was on purpose, and I think it's to get more focus on him and away from it's the same thing that Sutter does with his team. It's the same thing that John Cooper does in every presser. He makes it, it's mind games. And it 100% worked on Nashville, because they were like, he's talking about all this, we have to go after him, and he's like, you activated my trap card, you fell in. I think that was on purpose. There's no way something like that comes out before the playoffs without him being like, they're going to know about this, and I want to use it to my advantage. And I wouldn't be surprised if he plays a little bit more aggressive in the second round.
I think he's still going to be nervous.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't blame him. He doesn't want to be that guy. He hated the fact that he sat and watched his teams get eliminated. I can't imagine that feeling.
3 times.
They know. Yeah, and he knows the teams rely on him. He's an important piece to the team. There's a reason that he's going to make a lot of money this summer, because he's a good player and is important to the team. But the one thing that I believe it was Josh Manson said, that he noticed how much Nashville was targeting him, whether it was game 2 or game 3, but they were going after him all game, and he said enough's enough and just stepped up and fought on behalf of Kadri. He didn't need to do that. He really didn't, because obviously Kadri can hold his own if he needs to.
I think
he's also a new guy to the team, and it shows how the fact that Kadri probably implored to him hey, this sucks, I'm always targeted.
I think Kadri intentionally made himself the target, though, and it worked, because he's skating away from Nashville, and it's getting under their skin. You can tell. And I wouldn't be surprised if Manson potentially fights again in the second round, or somebody else does to defend Kadri, because I don't know if he had a talk with Sakic or Bednar, and they were like, just whatever you do not get into a fight. Skate away.
Well,
it doesn't matter. Just skate away. And even more so, watching the Calgary series, they're probably even more being like, don't do what Tkachuk is doing. So I legitimately think.
I wouldn't say it's them. I don't think it's them. I don't think it's Bednar. I mean, he's probably said a few things like, hey, don't screw us over. And Sakic probably said about the same thing. I don't think it's either of them. You know who I think it is? His agent. His agent is saying, if you get suspended in the playoffs, you're going to lose $2 million.
Oh, it'd be more than that.
Per year. He's going to go from potentially $8 million to 5
to 6.
He's
without question.
He's a liability.
And you know what?
Yeah.
The Avs are better for him not playing with that edge. His edge is what makes him him. But right now, they need him as a player more than they need his edge, because there's other players that are stepping up to do that. Hell, Gabe Landeskog will probably throw fists before Kadri will this playoffs, and more than once.
The passion from Nashville wasn't there. That's the thing. That's another thing too. There wasn't the same amount of passion that you would normally see in a playoff series, because it was outmatched.
I think if Saros is there, they play differently. But there was just that
100%.
They didn't go in with a defeatist mentality. But when you don't have the guy behind you, there's got to be something in you saying, okay, well, if I make a mistake, I don't have Saros to bail me out like I've had. So
you've lost your safety net.
Yeah, and
yeah,
so
yeah, no, so like there wasn't that passion. You didn't see that many fights in that series. Like it didn't feel like a passionate series, and I don't blame them. Like it was a sweep. They were getting blown up. I'm glad that there wasn't a lot of passion with the last 5 minutes of the game, because generally, if there is a lot of passion and they're getting swept and they know they're going to lose, that's when the deliberate hits happen.
Sometimes, not always, but
not all the time. And I'm not saying Nashville's that type of team, but that has happened before. And I was a little nervous when they went up. I was like, "Ugh, please don't get hurt."
Yeah, so, to me, the most interesting, no matter what happens, the most interesting matchup in round 2 will be the game 1 between Colorado and whoever they play. And because, as we said, usually the team that's coming, I think that series is going to go to game 7 between Minnesota and St. Louis. Usually the team that is rested gets bullied in game 1. I think that this was the best case scenario for the Avs. Getting that rest is like Manson quoted saying, "This was spending time with my family in this downtime is what I needed more than anything." And there's probably a lot of players in that situation. Yeah, no,
a mental rest on top of a physical rest.
Because like, you know Bednar in that the practice is going to bag skate them to hell and back. He is going to make them puke. Like,
oh yeah, he's going to beat the ever-loving hell out of them.
And that's good. That's what they need to get back in. Yeah. You've had your little rest. Now go for it.
Well, McKinnon's going to be a monster in those practices. He's going to be harder on the team than the coach.
Can I just one last thing, because we have to wrap up the show. I don't think anybody saw that Nathan McKinnon wouldn't be the best player on the Colorado Avalanche, and it's not even close anymore. I'm sorry, playoff Mac is good. Makar is so much better.
So I know you just said this, and it's gonna sound like I'm like, oh, I thought so, but like I kind of noticed that he didn't have that same, I don't know, like presence.
He didn't need sometimes you don't need the intensity if your team is already like that. So I don't. Maybe he's just in first gear and he's about to just like Fast and the Furious dom it up like crazy.
All season long, he's looked like a bit of a different player. It seems like he's not playing with the same edge in comparison to the year before. Like last year, I was like, holy crap, this guy is scary. This year, it doesn't seem as threatening. Like when he gets the puck, it doesn't feel like it's an 80% chance he's going to do something ridiculous and put it in the net. It's still like a 60% chance, but like it feels like it's dropped off a bit. So I'm glad Makar's playing out of his mind. Well,
look at the regular season, but he hasn't had to. That's the thing. Like, if he can,
well, now he has to though, because Rantanen's not doing anything. He hasn't.
If it takes until the second round for him to have to get into that next gear, that's scary for the entire NHL. But Makar
I'm hopeful that he's healthy and he's just pacing himself. I hope that it's not a lingering injury that's causing him to ease off the gas pedal. That's where my mind is at.
He doesn't seem like the type of player that would, but you and I talked about this before, and maybe, who knows, teams during overtime switch goalies for game management like what baseball does now. Maybe that was one of those things with one of his many trainers that he has was, if it seems like your team's going to make the playoffs, play where you're going to get your point per game, but don't show that edge. Save it for when it matters.
Yeah. Keep gas in the tank so that
you don't have to be like McDavid and have to go 200% every night because the rest of your team is like 700 pounds of weight behind you digging their heels into the ice.
Yeah. And the fact that Makar at such a young age, but it's not just Makar, and this is the thing, and I know that we wanted to wrap, I'm aware, but we kind of talked about this briefly, but it's more than just Makar. It's Devon Toews. And I think that everyone so hyper focuses on how talented, because Makar is so talented.
That's what you want, though.
Well, and I'm not saying the players. I'm just saying, like,
I know. That's what you want, though.
But, like, Devon Toews is one of the most crucial players for the Colorado Avalanche by far. As much as Makar is important that he's on the ice because he can put the puck in the net and he can do things no other human on the ice can do, Devon Toews just runs that team. In my mind, he should have an A on his chest, but he's just like, nah, guys, it's cool. It's good. Don't worry. He is, in my opinion, and this is going to be a very weird take, he is the best player on the Colorado Avalanche, and nobody can come close. Just because they can do fancy moves without Devon Toews.
Well, yeah, they did not do well in the regular season.
Different team.
And
they are completely different without him.
Which, yeah, you have to hope. I think even if he goes out, they're fine without him. But the way that he plays, it will have to be a freak occurrence for him to not be in. It's not like that's a surprise. If you've been listening to us through all of these episodes, his name comes up a lot, and it's not just from you, because he's one of those players. I still can't believe that was 2 seconds. That is probably one of the biggest fleeces in I don't know how long. Like, it is ridiculous. Speaking...
Imagine.
Okay.
Imagine he was on the market. And
right now, he probably makes an $8.5 million contract.
Well, no, I'm just saying for a trade deadline. Let's say his name is on the list. He's available. And Ben Sherratt goes for what he went for to Florida. How much is Devon Toews worth? Because he's better.
A first, an A-plus prospect, a player plus. Like, it's one of those weird ones. Just because he was traded from the Islanders for those 2 seconds, we didn't even mention Barry Trotz got fired.
Oh, yeah, that part.
That was like 2 days ago. And you and I talked about this.
And Montreal won the
Montreal won the lottery.
New Jersey got bumped to second.
Jersey was 5. They're number 2, which then still leads. Will they... Though the last time they traded their first round pick away, they ended up getting Corey Schneider. They gave up Bo Horvat. Corey Schneider then played one of the best seasons of hockey that nobody ever talks about in front of one of the worst teams in hockey. So it's been crazy. The first round we expect crazy hockey. I did not expect 7 series going to Game 6, and I love it.
Yeah, the fact that tonight there are 4 games that could be 4 series that could end, and then the next night is 3 series that could end, and then the next night is potentially 4
or
series
0 hockey,
and then the next night is also 3 series that could, the fact that we're at this point is just, it's nutty. It's great. I love it.
With so few overtimes, which we've been so spoiled the last few years, and first round overtime, a lot of overtimes. So it's good hockey. It's fun hockey.
And one thing I do have to say is it is so much better to watch these games knowing that I don't have to stress about my team, at least for a couple more days. It's so relaxing to watch a hockey game when you don't care who wins.
So I had to, just as an aside, I had to video chat Pat during one of the Avalanche games. They were up 3-0 at this point. He looked like he was going more white by the second. He was his team is up 3-0. They Makar just scored the goal of the playoffs, and he is still just this ball of stress.
It's no leads are safe, plain and simple. And maybe it's because of we live in Ontario, so we get the Toronto feed. That's what I grew up watching. So maybe it's this bias because I know Toronto hockey and no lead is safe in Toronto. I assume that's really what it is, but at the same time, it's still just, it bleeds into every single game I watch. If I see a game and it's 8-1, there's still a chance.
Well, because we literally saw a 6-1
some comebacks
earlier this year. We're going to keep going. I think we got to wrap this up because we'll keep going on subjects here. Obviously, 4 games tonight, 3 games tomorrow. There could still be a ton of games left, or literally round 2 could start on Sunday for all we know. which is so much fun when you have to schedule hockey games as part of what you do for work. So hey, that's the fun I get to have. We said our piece. Anything you want to add before we finish this episode?
No, not really. Just enjoy these next couple games. My goodness, it is
and the
going
weather.
to be incredible hockey. Yeah, our weather is also really lovely here too. It's I think we got to 30 degrees Celsius today, and
can't wait to build a deck in that heat on Saturday.
Whoop,
Yay!
But no, enjoy this hockey. Get outside and do stuff. It's nice to be able to get out and do things. Like, I've been spending so much time in my backyard and I feel like a new person. It's great. So yeah, get out there. Focus on that mental health change. Sunshine is good for it. Do it.